And right
100%.
now, you're traversing through femininity, clutching the wheel like,
Am I doing this
why
right?
wasn't I? Yeah, am I doing this right? Why wasn't I taught this shit before?
This is what it takes to be disciplined with yourself, and certain just like lifestyle habits that are important for any human, regardless.
Eating clean, working out, waking up at a certain
Just
time.
routine, yeah, discipline.
Routine discipline.
Yeah, routine discipline. Yeah, exactly. And like moving into my apartment. So doubling back, we talked about this a little bit the other day. You know, there's a difference between having independent characteristics and like experiencing independence. And like this is really the first time in my life that I'm actually experiencing independence full throttle. Right. Like I dictate what goes on, what happens in all the whole realm of my life in my apartment and XYZ. And like this is really the first time I've done that. And so that's why I was kind of struggling with like, what am I doing? Because I've never, there's no baseline of like knowing what to do.
Can I just tell you what I see? This is what I visualize. I literally just visualize you with a helmet on and a giant like poncho fur with a spear, and you're like, you're like, where are the mammoths? Yeah. It's just. The more and more you do it, it's going to be about finding whether or not you want to do that for the rest of your life.
Yes. There is nothing wrong with being dependent and like utilizing other people around you. And like that is innately by itself just a beautiful thing about being humans, because the only way we've been able to survive has been off of human dependency, regardless if it's...
Off of the communal aspect of,
yes.
of depending on one another in one way, shape, or form. It's that understanding the skill specialization of, let's say, especially the skill specialization of what it means to be a woman versus a man is, I need you to help me decompress the angst of having to always be strong.
Yeah.
But I'm also be there for you so you can depend on me quite literally from a survival standpoint.
Right.
So you don't have to be out there with a spear and a giant helmet on doing this. And it keeps falling and you're just pushing it up. You know?
So I think when it comes down to just like the dynamic between men and women, or just like being a woman in general. So there's this thing that we have when it comes to just like supplementation and like daily things that you need to focus on when it comes to general health, and kind of how to roadmap, you know, what should I be using for supplements, right? It's called a hierarchy of needs. Baseline is your multivitamin, then you got fast digesting carbs for after your workouts, and then a fast protein isolate, and then if you're struggling for protein throughout the day, that'd be next a sustained protein powder. Next is your creatine, and then BCAAs, beta alanine, XYZ. That's the tier. Hierarchy of needs when it comes to supplementation, right? So I was sitting down the other day, just thinking about like the standard I need to hold for myself and like what I want out of a relationship. And like, you know, I do this for my health and like how I go about approaching day-to-day normal lifestyle stuff. Why don't I do this for the way I want to be treated and what I want out of a relationship? So I sat down and I wrote down like my hierarchy of needs when it comes to a relationship.
Wow.
And like that was just real like grounding, I guess, for me, in the sense of, you know, if I hold myself to this standard in this way, it needs to be balanced, and I have to have alignment in every aspect of my life. And relationships are a big, heavy part of that, whether it's friendship, or intimate romantic relationships, or even just like family dynamics, you know, like there has to be some type of line.
What were a couple of things you wrote?
The baseline one was communication.
Crystal clear communication,
like, and it's not going to be perfect off the bat.
No,
like
your intention should to make sure that you're trying to pour straight purified water into this cup. And if there's any translucency, if there's any dirt or any murkiness, right, it should be addressed so we can filter it out before it starts actually polluting the stream of our relationship.
Exactly. Yes. And that's literally what I wrote down. Like, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be things that I don't understand and you don't understand, but we have to be able to talk about it and address it and then navigate how to make it clear.
I think the hardest part is fundamentally always understanding we're on the same team.
Yes.
That's something, again, we talked about really when we started mending our relationship was when you're raised with a certain level of emotional suppression where we don't really talk about your emotions all the time. You have this natural urge to just dismiss how you feel, and you have this natural urge to automatically think everything's okay without having to filter that water and address the miscommunication.
Yeah.
So they're okay with leaving the water murky and just kind of translucent and not completely filtered the way it otherwise could be.
Right.
Daniel Kahneman, he was a Nobel Prize winning economist, I believe. He won a Nobel Prize in economy, but I don't think he was an economist, or he won a Nobel Prize in like a different field and was an economist. Something like that. Yeah. Daniel Kahneman talks about, and he wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And in this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, it talks about two modes of thinking that all humans have.
Mm-hmm.
You have your system 1 way of thinking. It's actually on that board. See how it says system 1 fast, system 2 slow?
Oh, yeah.
So system 1, your fast way of thinking, is going to be you getting in the car, being able to drive, being able to just react, not having to think.
Oh my gosh. Me and Chloe were literally just talking about this type of thing the other day.
Nice.
Continue.
Your system 2 is going to be your slow, intentional, deliberate thinking.
Okay.
So think about it. When you first learned to drive, you were deliberate and intentional about checking everything, seatbelt.
You could feel the angst of like doing it correctly.
There was an anticipatory angst that was in that slow way of thinking because you were slowly thinking.
Right.
You had time to have anxious thoughts. Exactly, right? So for you, it's now recognizing you have certain feminine behavioral traits that you're trying to that you're trying to deliberately think about every day.
Yes.
And you're going to have to until it ends up experiencing and accumulating into an intuitive system 1 way of thinking.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah, 100%.
And if you can think of it that way, it makes your deliberate efforts a little more enjoyable because you're like, I only have to keep really thinking about 10 to 2 until I can finally get comfortable just driving with one hand at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And right
100%.
now, you're traversing through femininity, clutching the wheel like,
am I doing this
why
right?
wasn't I looking? Am I doing this right? Why wasn't I taught this shit before? And then you have to like calm yourself down. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to scream. I'm not supposed to be clutching this wheel.
Yes.
I'm honestly not even supposed to be driving this. Why isn't it a man driving this car?
I was in the back seat.
I want to be the passenger, bro. I'll be the passenger because you got to be his rib. You got to be his support. You got to be his assistant. You got to be his inspiration.
Yes.
You got to trust he knows where he's driving. But you have to also have a man that you trust to drive.
Yes.
Dude, you're killing it though. Think about it. It's hard to be a woman in 2021. It's hard to be a human in 2021.
Yeah.
It's just hard to be a human.
It's hard to be a human, but it's harder to be a woman.
I got people telling me all the time, like, I didn't know that was your little sister. The Thompsons are savages in the fitness game, all this sort of shit.
Yeah.
And to be able to hear that unsolicited from people randomly who have zero vested interest is just, again, confirming the joy and adulation I see, appreciation and inspiration I feel and receive when seeing you on your grind, on your growth.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.